Hello, Sepul Nation. Welcome to another SepulQuarta. Today is SepulQuarta number 25. We're really happy to have the SepulQuarta for you all. This week, we're going to dedicate the SepulQuarta to the mental health awareness. And Sepultura, we're gonna chat like with Derek Hess and America Paredes from Mental Health America. So if you have any questions, please send them in the comment box here on YouTube or Facebook. And after the Q&A, we're gonna have Mark Holcomb from Periphery playing Phantom Self with Sepultura. It's a killer version of this already classic tune from Machine Messiah. During the Q&A, we're gonna have a QR code here if you wanna donate to Mental Health America. Feel free to do that. We're gonna leave it in the screen, and also I'm gonna put in the comments the link if you have some problems to scan the QR code. I'm gonna leave right now a message for the Brazilian audience, and after that we're gonna start the Q&A. Boa tarde, Sepul Nation. Bem-vindos a mais uma SepulQuarta, SepulQuarta número 25. Dessa vez a SepulQuarta vai ser em inglês, né? Então, se vocês tiverem alguma dúvida, se quem falar inglês tiver alguma questão, pode colocar aqui na caixa de comentários, né? Vai ser uma SepulQuarta muito especial, falando sobre cuidados com a saúde mental. E vai estar aqui disponível o QR Code, se vocês quiserem fazer doações, né? Vai ser para a instituição agora é uma instituição dos Estados Unidos, né? A Mental Health America. Então, se vocês tiverem interesse em fazer a doação ou conhecer, vai estar aqui o QR Code e o link nos comentários. E a gente vai ter o Derek Hess, que vocês conhecem, né? Fez a capa do Horrorback, do Sepultura, e várias outras capas importantes. E com a América Paredes, que é dessa instituição, da Mental Health America. Se você quiser ter as suas perguntas destacadas, você tem a opção do Superchat, mas para fazer a doação, apenas via QR Code. Então, essa daqui vai ser em inglês, mas vocês podem usar os comentários para colocar as suas perguntas. E depois do Q&A, a gente vai ter o Sepultura tocando Phantom Self com o Mark Holcomb do Periphery. E ficou uma versão matadora dessa música que já é um clássico do Machine Messiah. Então, recados dados, bem-vindos todos e todas a mais uma SepulQuarta. We're gonna start right now our Q&A, and I'm gonna put all our guests here, and with Mr. Derek Green.
Hello, welcome everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
We have a lot of people from all around the world joining us, actually. In the chat, but our special guest today on this SepulQuarta is America Paredes from Mental Health America, Derek Hess, joining us, who's an amazing artist. We've actually worked together, Sepultura, so on a Roarback album cover, but there it is, fantastic. So yeah, but basically I wanted to jump into what is it that, please tell us a little bit about what's going on with Mental Health America. What is it that the organization does, and how did it start?
Sure. So before I kind of give you that info, I'd love to say hello to everybody, because I see there are people from all over the world, which is amazing.
It's amazing, so, right? They're like,
it is amazing.
You have to speak all those languages to them.
Yeah.
So I hope you're prepared. It's like, wie geht's dir? Germany, wie geht's? Alles gut? Como estai? Let's see, privet, Russia.
I have hard enough time with English.
Jak se máš? Czech Republic. Okay,
that's amazing. So, I'm actually based out of Alexandria, Virginia, here in the United States, but I do work for Mental Health America. Mental Health America is a national organization that focuses on increasing public education and public awareness around mental health issues so that people don't wait until a point of crisis to go and get help. What really makes us different is that we were founded back in the 1900s at a time when a lot of people didn't talk about mental illness and didn't talk about mental health at all. And we were founded by an individual named Clifford Beers, who lived with manic depression, which in today's world, he would probably be diagnosed with bipolar disorder. But through his experience, he decided to write a book and really share about his experience being hospitalized. And he decided to write about it and be very open. And what's very interesting about that is the motto that he wrote about is to fight in the open, because he felt he had an urgency to share his story, to let others know that they were not alone in their struggle. And we continue to embrace that motto today. And Derek Hess he's created an image for us that really illuminates what it is to be able to live this idea of fighting in the open. And you can find that on our website at mhanational.org. But one of the fundamental things about mental health in any space, in any country where we are at, is that most people don't talk about mental health or talk about mental illness. And that's because of different reasons, right? Some people maybe have never had the space to talk about mental health, what it is, what does it look like, and when we're struggling. And because of the shame and the stigma that exists, oftentimes people wait and they get to a point of crisis to find help. And we want people to think about trying to find help before they get to that point of crisis.
I see. And so, Derek, how did you get involved with Mental Health America? How did you do this collaboration? And also, maybe you can tell everyone what really sparked this, like really made you understand that there's something going on with yourself.
Right. Well, you reached out to us, didn't you, about Mental Health America?
I don't even remember now, Derek. I just know that we love your artwork.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I don't remember either. And what got me thinking about this was my own diagnosis. Initially, I was diagnosed with being depressed and with depression, clinical depression. And that was, 94, 93, 94, 95. And so I was treated just for the depression. And as the treatment went along, it drove out the bipolar side, the manic side, because only half of my illness was being treated. And so 98, 99, 2000, somewhere, I don't know the timeline, I was diagnosed with bipolar depression and bipolar number 2, which is the depressive side of bipolar. And that's how I got started with this, by having it myself.
Right. And was there, like, what made you get to this realization? Like, was there somebody that approached you and was like, hey, you should get diagnosed? Or was it something that you decided you needed to get help?
Yeah, it was on my own. No one was telling me I was crazy. So
Right.
But oftentimes I think a lot of people are struggling, right? Where unless somebody tells you, hey, maybe you should go get help, we often struggle on our own. And we know when we start feeling not our usual self, right? That's the thing. Even more so now when the entire world is going through this pandemic, right? Everybody's struggling in different ways, but we don't ever really engage in conversations and saying, how are you doing really? Like if somebody asks you, how are you? You're like, I'm fine.
Right.
But I want to know what's actually going on in your mind and your emotions. And if you feel like you're having a really bad day, being able to say, I'm having a really bad day and I need help.
Right.
And it's hard to do that, right?
Right. Funny thing about that, asking you, how are you doing? I know this girl in Germany, and she came to visit, and she says, why do you ask each other how you're doing when you don't care?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got a point. So yeah, I mean, during this time of the pandemic, you're absolutely right. Everybody is dealing with something to a certain degree. And it is important to be able to talk about how you are actually doing.
So
I want to know that, I'm sorry, Derek, I cut you off,
No,
but
no,
I
no,
really am interested, right? And too often it's something that is kind of brushed under the rug, and you're like, oh, it doesn't matter. But every day when we don't talk about it, it progressively gets worse. That's the way mental illness works, right? And I think what's important for people to distinguish is there's a big difference between us feeling kind of sad and going through the motions of the different issues that may come up during the pandemic. And then there's a whole other aspect of actually living with depression or bipolar disorder or psychosis or any of these other kind of illnesses that have their own symptoms that are very different than just general sadness or anxiety.
Right. I agree. And also with the pandemic being not being able to go out and do things like normal. I mean, I can't go see my therapist and I can't go see my psychiatrist.
right.
Which is
Yeah, that's big.
oh, no, it's huge. But the one upside is that I have a monthly conversation on the phone with my psychiatrist, which is immensely helpful.
We have a question here from Slavic. What is the biggest type of mental illness you see within musicians compared to everybody else in other industries? How are musicians get help while they're touring? So do you have a lot of people, as far as musicians, is it professions that you feel, are there different varieties of different professions where mental illness is more pervasive, that's happening more? Or because I know in the music industry, it's something that's really, out there. It's something that's been plaguing the music industry from forever, for a very long time.
Yeah, I would say that the stat that I would use, at least within the United States, is 1 in 4 individuals deal with a diagnosable mental illness. So if 1 in 4, 1 in 4, yeah.
Wow.
So one more of us on this, right, would mean that one of us would be dealing with mental illness. And then, and when you think about the way that music really impacts our lives, right, both of you really being involved in that world, it's very difficult to then say you can separate musicians from doctors, for example. They have different levels of anxiety and stressors, but within the music field, there's a lot of folks that deal with depression and oftentimes may use that depression to kind of fuel some of their songwriting or the the musicality of their profession. So I would also say that during the pandemic, because like Derek was mentioning, right, you can't really seek out services in the most traditional ways, or even when you're touring, there isn't a moment to really stop and focus on the wellness piece. So musicians have had to have different aspects related to treatment that are available to them through kind of telehealth therapy, or there may be counseling opportunities available to them that are made available by the organizations and producers that are behind the shows.
Okay. What are some of the warning signs that people can look out for if they feel that their friend or their family member are dealing with some type of mental illness or depression? Because I know in my case, my mother was suffering a lot from a serious depression. And it was something you said that wasn't really talked about. A lot of people know what was going on in that field. And so for me as a kid growing up with that, I had no idea what was going on until things got really bad. And so what are some of the signs that people can look out for,
Yeah, what I think is important is 3 kind of areas. One is when somebody starts recognizing that somebody may be struggling, they may be looking for changes in their normal habits. And I say normal, right, in quotes, because each one of us is very different. So if, let's say you, Derek, right, are a person that sleeps very well at night, you get 8 hours generally, and all of a sudden you start sleeping 2 hours, that's out of the norm for you, right? And somebody may pay attention to that. or you start paying attention to, and you're like, wait, why is this happening? So there's some relation to like your normal habits. Are they changing in some way that are very visible to yourself or to others? Another way is if it's impacting your work life or your social relationships, right? So for example, I'm normally a person, I don't hang around with a lot of people. I don't have tons of friends. I have 1 or 2 friends that I communicate with regularly. So if in my case, I stop talking to these 1 or 2 individuals, that would be like a warning sign to folks, because they're saying, hey, she's not responding to text. She's not, you know, reaching out to us. She's not doing anything that she normally would. But if you compare that to somebody that is very sociable and is always out and just gregarious with people, and all of a sudden they retreat, that's another warning sign. So you really have to gauge it based on the person's individual norms and their personalities.
What about abuse as far as alcohol or drugs? Are those things that contribute to unstable lifestyle?
Definitely. Both, and it goes both ways, right? So you may find that some people are at some point really focused more on trying to feel better, so they may increase the use of drugs or alcohol to kind of numb whatever it is they're feeling. But what ends up happening is that it gets progressively worse, right? You need more alcohol, you need more drugs, and that's the important part of figuring out, is that piece of you trying to calm nerves or kind of deal with your emotions taking over your life, and that's where it really becomes problematic.
I say. And Derek, your artwork, you put a lot of your emotions or feelings into your artwork, as we've been seeing some examples there. So that plays a big role.
Absolutely. I just, you know, I express what I'm feeling, which most, if not all, artists do. And so therefore I'm expressing the depression, I'm expressing the anxiety, the manic episodes through the art. And I find it to be a little bit therapeutic to be able to.
So it's like a positive motivator, it seems.
Yeah, and also I find it pretty cool that a lot of people respond to it. A lot of people have these disorders respond to it, and they start talking to me about it, and they're like, "Well, I never really talked about this before until I started seeing these images," and they're like, "Well, you know, this is really cool. You know, I'm getting a voice to be able to relate my experiences with other people."
Oh, right. In America, have you noticed that there's been a rise in mental illness? Has there been a rise, or has it been going down? I mean,
so Mental Health America has a screening program that allows anybody from anyone with an internet connection to take free mental health assessments on our website at mhascreening.org. And it's the same type of assessment that you would get like at a doctor's office here in the United States, like for depression or anxiety, bipolar disorder. And what we've seen is, from the beginning of the pandemic, which is about March, we've had about a 500% increase in individuals who are screening for moderate to high anxiety, and 700% increase in moderate to severe depression. And you know, that's disastrous, right? Because we know as individuals we're feeling these things, but what we also know is that most of these people aren't actually getting any help. There's a lot of hesitancy to still go out and find support, but we do see some hopeful signs where people are really more interested in trying to find some sort of support. So they may look to artists and musicians who are doing this work and are really out there talking about their experience, so that they know if somebody like Derek Hess is willing to talk about his experience, then I can too, right? And it brings and shares that community aspect to it.
Yeah, I found that to be true, definitely. And going back to the substance abuse thing, I don't know the stats exactly, but the alcohol consumption in America has gone way up since the shutdown. You know, so people are drinking more.
That's true. Felipe. Derek, have you ever been depressive on tour? Um, Not, no, honestly, no, because when I'm on tour and when I'm surrounded by people who are very positive and I'm doing something that I love so much, it's really difficult to be depressed. I'm really in a good state. I feel very fortunate. And music actually helps in, in really invigorating any feelings that I have, you know, everything, that might be plaguing my mind by being on tour. It's just really resolved by being on stage and having that communication and that flow with people very close to me. It definitely helps. So I've never experienced that. I think the depression can come after a tour. Um, it, for certain artists that I've talked to, there's a lot of people I know that suffer from that, from being away from that limelight and that excitement and everything, and then slipping into a type of a depression, being at home, not knowing what to do with themselves. So for me, I've been able to you know, keep myself very occupied on tour and very busy and in a happy state of mind. Um, I wanted to ask you, America. I mean, are there any politicians that are getting involved? Because I don't hear a lot of talk about this in politics right now, as far as agendas for certain politicians about what they plan on doing. A few of them have talked a little bit about the mental illness problems that are going on in the US, especially with homeless people. Um, so I don't know if can you explain, like, why are there so many homeless people with mental disabilities?
So I can only speak to what's going on in the United States, right?
Okay.
Because that's where we are based. But I would say there are a lot of politicians in, you know, specifically Congress, that are focused on addressing mental health issues for everyone in the U.S. Just yesterday, they announced, for example, that the president actually approved the development of a new 3-digit code, which would be 988, so individuals can find immediate support when they're seeking, you know, crisis support, instead of trying to figure out like a whole number that they would have to reach out to. So now they're in the process of figuring out what that system would look like, and they have a period of 2 years to get that going. But to address your question specifically, you have to understand some of the history that is connected to the way mental health systems have operated within the United States for a very long time. You know, like in the 1900s, people were hospitalized for any reason. They didn't have to deal with mental illness. They could have been a woman who was speaking out against, you know, having some freedoms, and they were hospitalized. They could have been a person with a physical disability or a learning disability, and they were just put in asylums. But into the 60s, what ended up happening, individuals who were diagnosed with mental illness were oftentimes in these psychiatric units. And as they got better, because you know, individuals with mental illness can recover. You live a thriving life. Derek is an example of that, right? Like, he lives with bipolar disorder, but he's still an artist. He's still a whole person. And it was, what the system did was ask individuals and really push back individuals back into the community so that they could continue to have very productive lives. But unfortunately, the communities were not prepared to provide all of the supports that are needed, right? Whether it's ongoing therapy, ongoing housing support, and those people fall through the cracks, right? And it's not just one aspect that is, you know, homelessness is related to mental illness. It's true that some individuals may deal with mental illness, but not all of them.
Of course, right.
But it's also, I think, another issue where people are oftentimes afraid of having discussions around mental illness and helping people because they just don't know what to say. And because it gets progressively worse, you're left in a space of kind of trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? And time flies, right? We're seeing that right now with the pandemic. It's October, and it feels like March was just yesterday, right?
Right. I see. Yeah, because I've noticed that you know, with I mean, environment, and does this have an effect on mental illness? I mean, the development? Is it something like, for me, I want to know, like, are there certain people that are born with it, and are there people where it develops over time? So there's different variations of mental illnesses, right?
Yes, there are different variations. There's a study that's called the ACEs study. Um, if people are interested in it, they can Google ACEs. And what it basically means is that individuals who have a higher rate of traumatic experiences have a higher likelihood of actually dealing with or having experienced depression or anxiety later in their life, because the traumas are unresolved, right? So some of those traumas, for example, are like if you live in poverty, if you have difficulties managing social relationships because maybe you never had a really good kind of familial kind of relationship with folks. So there's a lot that goes into how we are all impacted by mental health and mental illness. Like all of us are dealing with mental health, right?
Right.
Each one of us has emotions that fluctuate on a daily basis. But when we allow those emotions to take over, and unfortunately our the chemicals in the brain will modify over time, and sometimes you may need medications or you may need to go to therapy to help you think through what are some of the things that may be affecting your life. I know Derek, for example, when we've talked about his experiences, he has shared how he really uses his art to help him move through the process of what it is to live with bipolar disorder. And you mentioned that a little bit, Derek, but I know from following your work and following the people that really look to you for support, you are able to exemplify a lot of these heavy emotions that we feel, but we don't really have the words for. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you about that.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't have words for it either, to tell you the truth. That's why I'm a visual artist. And again, when I'm feeling a certain amount of depression or whatever, I'll bring pen to paper, and I will try to express it the best I can. And I find it very, very therapeutic on my end, and it helps me immensely get through the bad days. And the bad days can turn into bad weeks to bad months, And it's not just I have to check it and see if it's situational, critical, or seasonal. And sometimes it's a mix of all three, which I think can be hard to diagnose or hard to figure out. Well, it's a gray day out, I'm depressed, but it was sunny yesterday, I was depressed. So, which is it? Yeah, I just try to bring those aspects to the artwork and see what comes out.
I think I was first introduced to your artwork because I need to explain, I guess, to people out there that Derek and I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, primarily in the scene, like music scene, going to shows, and Derek was promoting shows and also doing the artwork for the flyers for the shows. And it really drew my eye because the bands that he was getting and also the artwork were tremendous. It really had a big impact on me. And I wanted to ask you, Derek, would the music, did that have an influence on the actual artwork that was being put on the flyers? And does music have that much of an impact in the development of your work?
Oh, absolutely. Music's huge. It's huge, huge, huge. I don't play an instrument. I can't sing. So what I can bring to the table to support the music is my artwork. And that definitely reflects reflects in all my artwork, not just the concert posters. Some of my pieces I'll go off one-liners from a song. It may not be about what the song's about, but it'll be about what the one-liner is about, and how it relates to me, and then how I can relate that to the music, and then pull it all together into a visual piece.
And was there somebody that influenced you, like when you were younger? Was there an artist that you looked up to that you're like, oh my God, this person is, incredible?
Oh yeah, this artist, his name was Gil Kane, Gilkane, and he was a comic book artist in the 60s and 70s. And him and Heinrich Kley, it's Kley. Was a German illustrator in the late 1800s, early 1900s, I believe. And his stuff is brilliant. If anybody wants to check that out, Heinrich Klei.
I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah, great.
I think the most powerful thing about like both of your work is that people find community in both spaces, right? Whether it's art or whether it's music. And within this space right now, right, a lot of people may feel like, why are we even talking about mental health, right? What does that have to do with music? But I would argue it has everything to do with music, because
Absolutely.
when artists create, they're creating based on what they feel. Both musical and, you know, graphic artists, it's based on everything that we're connected to. And for a lot of us who don't have the words to get it out and say that we're suffering or that we're in pain, the music is the best way to help others understand, like, this is how I can get all this stuff and crap that's in my head out into the world, and I don't have to live with that, right? I think that's critical.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I've been in psych wards, you know, 3 times, and that's why they always have music therapy and art therapy.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah, for the patients, not inmates.
Bruno, I see your image there.
Yeah, I'm here. We're about like to leave a quick message for about the Sepul store and everything. But before that, I would like to put a question. It's not a question; it's a statement. And if America could talk about this statement here, because I think it's really common to hear this kind of statement. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has the ability to get rid of depression. It's all in your head. What do you think about that, America?
I would say, you know, that's a very common misconception. Everybody has emotions. Everybody fluctuates, right? We could have good days and bad days. The difference between just general emotions and depression is the fact that there are definitive changes in your chemical structure in the brain that ultimately are going to get modify your emotions over time. And when I think most people think about depression, and similar to that comment, it's like, oh, you can get over it. You know, it's not a big deal. If you put your mind to it, you can change whatever you want. And I am all for positive energy. But when you can't get out of bed for days because your brain is messing with your ability to do that, because the depression is really the one that's leading everything, then how can I just change and snap out of it? That's not fair to say. It's very close to saying, well, you broke your leg, now you can do whatever you want. You can't. Your leg is broken. You wouldn't ask me to just get over my leg being broken when literally my brain is also the thing that's struggling. Right? So we have to be more open to understanding that people are struggling at different times. And most often when we are struggling and trying to find support and we get that type of response from somebody, it makes me less willing to actually talk to you about the issues that I'm having and less willing to ask for help.
Right.
I totally agree.
So we're gonna just do like a quick break here. We're just gonna talk to our Sepul Nation here, so we can have like drink some water and everything. So we're gonna put here the links where you guys can find everything related to Sepultura. Just go to sepultura.com.br/SepulQuarta, and you have like all links related to Sepultura, and you can find Sepul stores worldwide. I'm gonna share with you some stuff that you can find there. And here it is. So just go to sepultura.com.br/SepulQuarta. You're gonna be able to get everything related to Sepultura. Of course, everything related to SepulQuarta also. have like the playlist with all songs Sepultura has performed here. And also for our Brazilian audience, I'm gonna leave a quick message here. Então, para quem está acompanhando a SepulQuarta, a gente está colocando aqui o link sepultura.com.br/SepulQuarta, onde vocês podem encontrar todos os materiais relacionados ao Sepultura, também tudo relacionado à SepulQuarta, e tem merchandising novo na Sepulstore, e você pode procurar em sepulstore.com.br ou acessando sepultura.com.br/SepulQuarta, você também tem acesso a todas as lojas do Sepultura, e lembrando que depois do Q&A, nós vamos ter o Sepultura tocando Phantom Self. Então a gente vai voltar agora aqui para o bate-papo com os nossos convidados. So we're gonna come back here talking about
We're back. All right. So I had a question I get for both of you. What are the differences between public and private institutions? Or is there a difference? Derek, I know that you said that you had experienced, you've been in a few institutions.
Right.
I don't know if they were public or private, but I wanted to know what are the differences between them? I mean, so maybe you could explain, both of you.
Well, I don't really know what mine was. It was part of a hospital, so I guess it's public. I would imagine. I don't know what private institution would be, to tell you the truth.
Right.
Yeah, so I can't help you with that one.
Right. And then the place that you were at, I mean, what were some of the things that they would do to help in your recovery, to be like, okay, you're okay to go back out there? Like, what are some of the recovery things that are done in order to help you get back out there?
A lot of it had to do with med checks and switching the meds around for my bipolar, and I found after years of doing one thing, it would wear off, and I'd have to change the meds, switch them around, or the doctor would change them.
Right.
And, so it kind of had to get tuned up, and then of course we had the therapy, which, you know, sit down and talk about how you feel and blah blah blah, and
right,
and get it all out, and work from there. Figure out a plan on how to maintain some stability.
Are there certain triggers or certain things that trigger you into having, you know, where you sink into a depression? Are there certain things that you need to stay away from, or? Yeah,
I'm sure there are triggers. Like, nothing comes to mind right now. But I do have to stay away from bars.
Okay.
Because I'm dual diagnosed. I'm alcoholic as well. So I stay away from the bar situation, large parties, but that's no problem right now because there are no parties. And I have to keep that in check. Yeah.
Right. I think I see one question off to the side. It was just like, you ever thought about working tattooing?
Who, me?
Yeah. America, unless you have some
like,
skill that I don't know about.
No, I never got into the tattooing. A lot of people take my existing images and get them tattooed, which I think is amazing, and they'll send me pictures of them. Some are done really, really well, but for myself, no, I don't. I'm afraid to draw on skin. I don't want to be responsible for that.
Right. America, I wanted to know, how important is it to have the youth involvement in creating awareness in the youth community? How important is it for kids to have an understanding? Because I know growing up as a kid, I had no idea about anything about bipolar or mental illness or anything.
Yeah. You know, right now, the young people, I say young people, I feel old when I say that, but, you know, younger people, they are so much more open about talking about their struggles. And you see that really in all of the different spaces that they are in, right? Whether it's like TikTok, Instagram, and things. They're talking about it, which helps to create, you know, an opportunity to help also educate them when there are like misconceptions about what may be happening. But when you even think about younger children, there's a lot of work that's being done in public schools around social emotional learning, so that they are taught to really talk about their feelings. And that's the first step in helping us think through, how do we talk about our feelings? How do we tell somebody when we're feeling sad or we're not feeling like ourselves? And that's the hard part, right? Imagine as adults, like, we don't know what to say when somebody's like, how do you feel? If the answer is fine, you're just like, whatever. I feel sad. I feel happy. But there are more words than that to explain our experience. And so schools are helping in that. There are a lot of you know, mental health professionals, counselors, psychologists, and things that are working within the schools, and social workers to help that space, and also help the teachers and helping the students and the parents, because the parents may not be familiar with it either, right? And you have to be able to really connect all of those pieces.
So it seems that, you know, the main thing is being able to communicate, you know, to be able to speak out. And, you know, I know in my household, that was just something that wasn't really happening so much, you know, communicating what's going on as far as feelings. But I grew up in a very artistic family, so that art, music, things definitely help to, you know, put out those emotions. Let's see, we have a question here. Calsonic. Animals are also great form of therapy. Also, being out in the wild gives a sense of relief and freedom. Sometimes you just got to breathe. I would have to agree. I mean, I think animals are great for treatment and all types of therapy. I think you learn so much from animals, and that connection has always been there with humans and animals. I mean, there's probably been more of a disconnect now, but I mean, I would agree 100%.
Completely. Here, go ahead, Derek.
Oh no, I find that animals and pets are very important as well, because you're responsible for them. You have to get out of bed to walk that dog. You know, you have to feed the animals. You got to take care of them, and
they're totally reliant on you. You know, they're so, you know.
Absolutely. And had I not had dogs, I don't know what I would have done in my past.
That's such a good point. Even now, within the United States, you know, there are a lot of animals that were in shelters, but there are so many people, because they've been stuck at home and they were struggling and really trying to find emotional support, they went and adopted a lot of these animals that had been there. So there is a whole field of mental health specifically focused like on animal support therapies. But yes, dogs, cats, birds, they are all aspects that help us take away that, you know, that emotional labor of focusing on ourselves and focusing on another living thing. And then getting outside, like if there's an opportunity for you to get outside and go walk and just separate yourself from whatever environment you're in, I think that does so much good for your mental health.
That's a really good point that you brought up. I wanted to talk a little bit more about how does physical activity play in mental health? Working out and things like that, does that have an impact on creating a better feeling or positivity?
Definitely. Yes. There is research that demonstrates that, you know, I hear they talk about like getting at least 30 minutes of exercise, and that's great. But what ends up happening when you do a lot of exercise, you actually release endorphins, and endorphins are the things that make you feel good. So they help you feel better in the long term, and also help you be better equipped to address your mental health. So going for a walk is one thing, you know, going for a run is another. All of those aspects gets your body moving, and it gets you connected to this aspect that you may have lost touch with when you're really struggling with depression or bipolar, you know, and really re-engaging in that kind of physical aspect. So it's beyond just your head, because most often it's the thoughts that we have in our head that are the ones that are the worst, right? We don't say nice things to one another in our head.
Right. You don't say nice things to yourself either.
No, never. You know, it's all bad. But it takes a lot of training for you to learn how to talk to yourself in a positive way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good one here. Brevity is the soul of wit. After dealing with everyone else's mental health on a daily basis, at the end of the day, how do you deal with your own mental health? It must be very exhausting. Thanks for all you do. I believe this. Well, America, I think that's for you.
I don't know if that's for me. I think it would relate to everybody, but I try to spend time with my family. And I love my dog. My dog is a savior, like Derek said. If if I didn't have him, I wouldn't get out of bed sometimes. But it's also trying to find support, right? Like I've gone to therapy, and I find that therapy is very useful because you can talk to your friends, you can talk to family members, but having a person that has no personal connection to you help you kind of think through your own thoughts is so good to do. And in the long run, it's very normalizing, right? To say whatever thoughts you're having, those are normal. Everybody has those things. Yeah.
I had and so it brings me to my next topic. I think I talked with Derek about this before. Does food have an impact on mental health? Do you think? Does it have any connection with your feelings, food, and your diet?
Well, the diet, there's the term comfort food, and I find that very comforting. And there are certain types of food I believe work on the mood, but different than others. Like for lunch today, I had a meatball sub, right?
Okay.
I feel great. I feel awesome. Other than that, I don't know what to say about the food situation.
There are some foods that are better for you, but I totally get the comfort food. Like everybody has things that make you feel good just when you you eat them. But there's like research that shows like if you eat fish and more vegetables, it's better in the long term for your brain health. So meatball subs all day, but if there's an opportunity to also eat some healthier vegetables, some fish, some lean meats, all of those things contribute to our wellness.
Absolutely. I think it's entirely connected. I think when I was eating poorly or eating like very bad junk food or very processed food, it had an impact on how I was feeling, not only physically. At least that's how I felt. And I know that when I did change those things out, I noticed a big difference in clarity in thinking, and also how my feeling of how my connection with my body and everything just felt very good. Is junk food a reflection of being depressed?
I would say, Christopher, you yes and no, right? Like everybody has the ability to you can eat good food, right? Good meaning low in fat, high vegetables.
It can be tasty too.
Yes, right.
And all those things.
If the only thing you've eaten for the last 5 days is junk food, then you might have to ask yourself why that is, right? I think now because of the pandemic, a lot of us have gotten into a way to feel better, right? Because things are not normal. So we may find comfort in watching TV, eating a bag of chips, because we don't have to really think beyond that. But in the long term, a lot of people may have gained weight because of the pandemic, and where everybody was isolated, you felt bad, so you go to the things that may not be the best coping skills. And junk food is one thing that can lead us down a path of feeling bad because it's high in sodium. Prepackaged foods are generally high in sodium. They have a lot of preservatives, so then your body feels heavier, right, because of all the digestion and everything that has happened. So there is a connection, but you always have to think about how it connects back to your individual experience.
Absolutely.
Right. I agree.
Derek Hess. Cleveland Mosh team loves you. Solar Island.
I love the Cleveland Mosh team.
Derek, what have you? So, I mean, maybe you can tell the people what bands you've worked with, like album covers and stuff like that. You've done the Sepultura album cover for Roarback.
Right, I did that. That was a fun job, definitely. I've done stuff for Converge. Converge. I'm drawing a blank. In Flames, yes, In Flames.
In Flames.
That was a fun job as well.
Mm-hmm. There it is.
See, this is very. I'm sorry?
I think a lot of this, that artwork that you did for us really looks, it's still relevant today. It seems like there's this ominous figure pushing, the pawn, which is a representation of us, the public, across the world. This brings me to another question: is being in this pandemic and everybody being locked down, that's created a rise, I think, in anxiety for a lot of people, and a lot of crazy ideas as far as, conspiracies and things like that have arise from being isolated and playing on the mind. So what can people do to break away from these anxieties of being locked up and being, what do you guys suggest? What do you suggest are good things to do to break away from the anxiety of watching so much TV, of all these things that are going on and all the different, there we go. Mm-hmm. Of all the, the craziness, because a lot of people have developed these bizarre theories from, I believe, the isolation.
Well,
I think.
Derek, go.
No.
I was gonna say, I can't speak to the type of theories people have come up with, but I think it's always good to try to find a way to connect with other people, even if it's like where you can be out in the open and speaking to people, with masks on and things that help you see another person instead of just being on screen, because a lot of us have that experience right now, whether it's working or watching TV. You have to allow your brain to relax from just being in front of the computer or your cell phone.
Yeah, I agree. I meet with some people every day at noon, and it's good to make a connection. And I make sure I do that every day. And I'm also making phone calls to my mom and my sister, and generally every day to my sister, not so much my mom. But it makes me accountable too, to be able to be in touch with them.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I think this pandemic, it's definitely brought people closer in certain ways. I think for me, it's really important to have that connection, to be away from the computer and to go out and have these activities, as far as hiking, things that are really make me feel good, and being around positive people actually helps as well. It can be draining being around people who are just consistently talking about politics or, all these different things that are out of our hands, certain things that we're not able to control. But one thing I found that's really therapeutical is doing things that I'm able to control, like a hike or to listening to music. And you said like clearing your mind, talking with people about, everything, just really being around people that are supportive of what you do, and lifestyles. I'm not around a lot of party people, like you're saying. I'm not going to parties. I stopped drinking and doing all these things, and being around people who are like-minded definitely helps to battle any type of depression that might be building up, for the fact of not playing any shows, not touring, but finding other activities that are good for the mind and body as well.
That's got to be tough too. You're not being able to do shows.
Tough.
Yeah, so many musicians that are like, you know, they don't even get together to practice, you know.
Yeah, yeah, to jam or to things like that. I mean, it's been over, 20 years of consistently going out and playing shows, nonstop. And I love that. And it's a big twist, but again, it really brings me uh, back to the fact of being thankful and just keeping things in a way of reality of like, I can only control so much that's going on. And I'm going to do my best to really be on top of things now because it's not going to be lasting forever, this pandemic. And I want to feel on top when it is over. I want to feel like I want to go back to doing something maybe different or the same, or I don't know if things will ever be the same, but at least feel that I wasn't suffocated by this being locked down, and find some new things about myself that I never knew existed. So it's a challenge, I feel, a good challenge.
Right.
I've heard that from some folks that, with the pandemic, they've had to like re-envision who they are as an individual, right? And their identity. Like you as a musician, if you're not out touring and out in front of people, the music that you make is one aspect, but then when you're at home, you're still who you are, but you have to also explore other activities and other ways of thinking that will then help you feel normal to your normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are struggling in that space and are going to continue to struggle because all of that has happened, and things that are going to continue to exist in our world are pushing us to think about ways in which we can be better people, like a better person. Are we doing what we can to help one another? Are we doing what we can to help ourselves? And sometimes it's easier for us to help another person than to help ourselves, right? That's where the struggle really exists.
I agree 100%. I think this is something that's fundamental, is that when you have the ability to help somebody else, this is so, I think one of the reasons that we're all here is really to help each other. And so when you get off of yourself and stop thinking about yourself and you're helping other people, it's tremendous. It's something that's really contagious, I feel, a good contagious.
Yeah, I think for the work that we do at Mental Health America and what we've seen in the conversations that we've had with folks in the last 6 months, more than ever before, people are recognizing that we have to think about our mental health because it's connected to our physical health. And when we start really understanding that they're both really part of who we are, then we can do better for ourselves, right? And part of that is also being kind to ourselves. We are the hardest on ourselves, and most people forget that. And when you're struggling with depression, anxiety, or bipolar disorder, psychosis, and you don't have support, the only way that you can feel better is reaching out for help.
Absolutely. I think anxiety, just thinking about, there's something that like clicked in my head really young, at a really very, very young age, was coffee was a weird thing that set my anxiety off, where I didn't know what was going on because nobody was really talking about it. So I'd be drinking some coffee and then it's like, oh, all of a sudden I'd fall into this complete darkness of abyss, like dying feeling. It was like, okay, everything, I'm dying, and absolutely nothing going on, creating this total anxiety. But I realized that was from coffee that set that off for me in a strange way. But I don't know why I just put that out there. But that was something I was thinking about, like growing up. I was like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. There's, this anxiety that I'm feeling. And so, okay, I'm just seeing what Bruno has put here.
I think he put some information.
Yeah. Okay, so if you need help and you're suffering from, if you're feeling that you need somebody to talk to, then this is a link that we have here for people in Brazil, because we know we have a lot of Brazilian followers here. So you can go here and get help and speak and talk about what's going on. And what is going on with you, Derek? Are they doing any collabs or anything like that? Because I know that you guys did a collab, right? As far as you were working together doing something. you said earlier?
Yeah, definitely. I did the artwork that they've used on several different things now, definitely on T-shirts. And what else did we do recently? Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm talking to Marty over here.
Hey, Marty.
You do different projects throughout the year where we donate money to different organizations.
Right. It's done different projects over the years where proceeds go to different mental health organizations, and things along those lines.
I think that's important, these collaborations. I really want to thank you guys for being here. This is a type of collaboration that's great. And I'd love to see this more, with other artists. We did a collaboration with American Frontlines for Indigenous rights, and did a video. There's actually a song on the new Sepultura album, and it's talking about depression. It's called Agony of Defeat that I wrote. And it was actually dealing with that, growing up and really just having that isolation and dealing with treating yourself well, like you were saying, like learning to do that. I had to learn to be kind to myself, which is a lot of people have this problem. I realized over time, I thought it was just something I was going through, like beating myself up. But talking and communicating with people definitely helped a lot, and treating myself well, and every aspect helps. So there is a song that I wrote about this dealing with depression and the battle that happens inside and the outside, coming in. So it was very therapeutical to write that song. It'd be great to do a video for that eventually.
Yeah, the internal struggle is the hardest, I think, because it's all within. We don't often talk about it. It's very hard to talk about, but even for you and using that music, and for all of the people that are really on here that are looking to you as a group, right, as an influence in their life, being able to even have a space to provide for Derek and I to have a conversation with your fans about mental health is huge, because it normalizes it. It normalizes that conversation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Derek, just a few more questions. There was one quick question about you were in a documentary I was reading.
Yeah. This guy Nick Cavalier approached me about doing a documentary on myself, and
nice.
I said, well, somebody actually wants to go ahead and do this, by all means, do it. And so it was a couple years ago now that it came out, and it did the film.
What's the name of it?
Forced Perspective.
Forced Perspective. That's
Forced Perspective. Yeah. And it did the independent film festivals, the whole circuit, and got a real good positive response. Nick's a pretty good filmmaker. He did a good job.
You can see it on Amazon.
And you can see it on Amazon.
Silvio.
I'm sorry, Apple TV and Amazon. You can see it.
Apple TV and Amazon.
Right.
I agree. We can turn this shit to good thing to ourselves. And Derek, I'm a major fan of your work since Sepultura. I work with your cover on Warbeck. That's our friend Silvio, who has worked with Sepultura for many years in the past, a friend of ours. And he's a big fan of yours, Derek, along with many other people I know are huge fans of yours. And I see Bruno in the corner there lurking. I think we're
yeah, just looking, but we're about to finish our Q&A here, and I'm gonna have like a couple minutes after talking about the music video that we're gonna
we're gonna do we did this SepulQuarta. We're doing the song Phantom Self with Mark Holcomb of Periphery, the band Periphery. So we did a jam with him, all of us in our home. And so we're doing the song Phantom Self from Machine Messiah. After this conversation, we're going to play that for everybody. But man, I'm just going to wind this up, and thank you guys for being here. This is really huge. I think it's helped a lot of people out there that may have had any questions, and hopefully it has. You know, where do you see the future of, especially in America? I know there's a serious problem of, as far as, I think, a disconnect with people understanding mental illness. What can people do to help in this battle to make people more aware?
I would say, you know, try to move away from the misconceptions that exist. Ask deeper and tougher questions so that you can actually support yourself and support others. Because without that, you will never find support, right? And support is key to helping anybody really recover. And I would also say that, you know, finding communities like you are doing here in this example, and working with folks like Derek that are outside of the mental health space, right? Because as professionals, but are willing to really talk about these issues.
Awesome.
Right, I agree, definitely. And also I go back to that statement that we got a little while ago about depression and how you just get over it kind of thing. And you know, that's not true, as we spoke about. And getting together with professionals and asking more probing questions, I think, is important.
There's Guilherme Fontana. Thanks for the support, guys. Do you already notice some change in perspective on people about mental health around the last few months?
I would say yes. People are more willing to talk about it, but we still have a lot of work to do to help people know that they're not alone. And I would say you aren't alone. There is help out there. Sometimes it may be difficult to find, but there is help.
Yeah, I agree. I've noticed a lot more. I guess, like, people more aware of what's going on. You know, it's really good to see, and it's great to hear people talking about it. You know, absolutely, it helps.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
actually over the past couple years as well, it's just really come to the forefront, which is really important. I think it's great.
Bruno.
Yeah, so it's time to go. We're gonna leave. You guys wanna leave like a last message for today, because we're running out of time right now. And after that, we're gonna have the performance of Phantom Self. And first of all, we wanna like to thank everybody that's here on the chat, and also ask them to like this Q&A, and also share with your friends, because it's a really important topic to share with everybody, right?
Yes, Bruno, it is. I would say I would take away, like, treat yourself well, you know, for sure. I mean, that's something that I daily remind myself, like, you know, don't be so hard on yourself, like you were saying, America, and really talk when you're having certain problems, or don't keep things inside or bundled up. You know, talk with people that are close to you, or people you feel that have your back, that are going to listen to you, and reach out to them. Don't be afraid.
I think you said it all. Thank you for having me on, and hopefully.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Really means a lot.
Appreciate the interest, definitely.
Então, eu queria deixar um último recado aqui para SepulNation, para todo mundo que está acompanhando. A gente quer fazer um agradecimento especial aqui ao apoio da JBL Harman, né, que tem apoiado aqui o Sepultura por meio de produtos muito importantes, de primeira linha, como caixas, fones de ouvido, microfone e pedais. Então a gente vai ter algumas, em breve, né, algumas mais informações aqui sobre esse apoio que a gente tem recebido aqui da JBL. Então, na sequência, temos aí a estreia de Phantom Self. O endereço vocês podem acessar aqui, sepultura.com.br/SepulQuarta. And so we're gonna like to thank everybody, and just go to sepultura.com.br/SepulQuarta. We're gonna have the release of phantom self. Thank you.